Stay right here.
Launching back in September of last year, Raised by Wolves told the story of a futuristic society where two androids had been tasked with rearing a child after the destruction of the Earth. Considered by many to be the return of Ridley Scott to the science fiction genre, the series ran for 10 episodes and garnered quite a bit of excitement. But in true mind-bending fashion, the completion of Season 1 left fans with far more questions than they had answers, making their anticipation for Season 2 more palpable. So whether you're a fan of the dystopian franchise or just have some burning questions that you need answers, stay right where you are, as we're about to take a deep dive into everything that's known about Season 2 of Raised by Wolves. Ready for the answers you seek? Then let's jump right into it. The Renewal. Although Raised by Wolves was only released on HBO Max on the 3rd of September 2020, it didn't take long for the show to garner a bit of a cult following, with critics generally liking the mysterious nature of the show. And considering that expectations of the series were pretty high with the return of Ridley Scott as executive director and casting of Travis Fimmel, everyone's favorite Viking, Caleb, a good reception was a feat in its own right. With such a warm reception, HBO Max decided to greenlight the franchise for a second season in the very same month it had been released on the platform, showing just how anticipated this new installment of the series was. Suffice it to say, fans had questions that just needed to be answered, and Season 2 seems to be the only place where those answers can be found. But when can we expect Season 2 to arrive on the popular streaming platform? The release date? Well, to answer this question, we'll have to take a look at how long it took for the first season to be completed, as well as the state that the world currently finds itself in. It might surprise you all to hear that TNT had already announced the series' order to production back in October of 2018, which is when it was also established that Ridley Scott would not only act as executive director, but direct the first 2 episodes of the season as well. This clearly drove fans of the Alien franchise Scott had previously directed up the wall with excitement, causing quite the anticipation for the series to start building. Casting for the season then took place between January and March of 2019, with filming taking place in Cape Town, South Africa shortly thereafter. The series then appeared on HBO Max in early September 2020, a full 1 year and 6 months later. And although you might expect the next season to hit our television screens somewhere along the same timeline, this might not be the case due to the effects of the global health situation that the world is currently experiencing. This remains especially true if filming is to continue in Cape Town, South Africa, where a new strain has been identified that is far more transferable than the last. We know that shows have been delayed due to the global health situation in the past, but right now, nobody is allowed in or out of South Africa because of this newly established strain, making the filming and production of the franchise next to impossible. When asked by Deadline when the show would be going into production, showrunner Aaron Guzikowski said, "It's going to be sometime early next year, hopefully." In other words, we can expect production for Season 2 to begin as soon as South Africa decides to open its borders to the directors and cast members of the show. And once production begins, we'll probably have to wait another year and a half before being able to get the answers we so badly need. It sure does sound like a long time, but at least it's something, right? So be sure to mark your calendars for about September 2022, and pray to Ridley Scott that the series gets finished way before that. The Season 2 episode list. Guzikowski also mentioned that since critics had previously called the show out for being too long-winded in the first season, it's more likely that the second season will be scaled down to a certain degree. So while episode length will ultimately remain the same, episode number might very well change depending on how the production team feels at the time. In his very own words, it could potentially be 8, but we'll see. Definitely 8 or 10. I think 8 is the new 10 when it comes to streaming. I think 8 is enough. This might sound horrible to fans of the show, knowing that around 2 episodes are going to be lost in the transition from first to second season, but this might actually serve to get us the second season a lot quicker than we originally thought. And hey, if Guzikowski and Scott can bring us just as much content and answer the questions we want answers to in just 8 episodes, then more power to them. But what about the plan for beyond Season 2 of the franchise? Planning for the future. Well, according to Guzikowski, he's always had a 5 or 6 season story arc planned for Raised by Wolves. So at the bare minimum, it's looking like fans are in for a Game of Thrones-esque wait when it comes to the future of the show. And since the showrunner has just secured an overall development deal with the giant streaming platform, it really seems like Guzikowski's plan is coming to fruition. Point is, the showrunner knows how he wants the story to end, which is what makes the seasons leading up to this finale so incredibly important and well planned out. Here's to hoping that having the answers before him saves the show from the ending of the Game of Thrones franchise. We now regret comparing it to everyone's favorite science fiction franchise. Unanswered questions aplenty. Raised by Wolves started out as nothing more than a dystopian tale of 2 androids, simply named Mother and Father, seeking refuge on a desolate planet by the name of Kepler 22b. As it turns out, however, the planet is not quite as desolate as they thought, as it had been set aside for the birth of a new atheistic human civilization, which is now at war war with each other, machine and something else altogether. The synthetic humans tried their very best to raise a child of theirs in isolation away from this Mithraic army. But probably the most confusing moment from the franchise came in its Season 1 finale, where Mother was seen giving birth to whatever she ended up pregnant with on her journey into the forest earlier in the season. Rather than it being the child she thought her maker had given her during a digital memory trip, this flying eel-like parasite quickly latched onto her abdomen, suckling at what we believed to be her nutrients. From this moment, viewers of the show realized that Kepler-22b is not just a hostile planet, but one shrouded in mystery. In the words of showrunner Guzikowski, and all those weird feral creatures, it turns out they're a bunch of devolved humans, which leads to the realization that people lived on this planet thousands of years ago, as did dinosaurs. What the heck is going on here? We couldn't have said it any better ourselves, as we see a Mithraic ship full of atheistic humans hovering over the planet, clearly indicating that a huge battle lies ahead. And as Father shows Mother to safety, we see the parasitic creature once more, which then takes flight as a gargantuan creature of proportions we've never seen before. The plot of Raised by Wolves Season 2. Although no official information regarding the second season has been released just yet, it's easy enough to point out some arcs that need further exploring, and as such will most likely feature in the upcoming installment. So let's begin by taking a look at Tally, as portrayed by the incredibly talented Grace Lee. We watched the 4-year-old disappear towards the beginning of the season, only for different characters to discover her dolls and illustrations an undisclosed number of days or years later. It's very possible that Tally's disappearance had something to do with those feral creatures we've now learned are nothing more than devolved humans. In fact, although it might be a stretch to say, it might even be plausible that Tally was alive sometime earlier in the franchise history, having later devolved into such a creature. Since we don't have a solid grasp on how time actually works back on Kepler-22b, something as crazy as this could indeed be happening. But until Season 2 comes around, we're guessing we won't be getting any more answers. The fate of Mother and Father is also pretty up in the air, considering that they're now traveling with a flying serpent of a child which we last saw as a gigantic behemoth. Does time act differently when it comes to the control of devolved humans? That would explain how the child was able to grow to that size without much else changing around it. Another possibility is that since Mother and Father are androids, it's possible that they do not age like humans do. In other words, all we really saw was the quick passing of time. This doesn't seem entirely plausible though, as such a passing of time would shut out other important characters like Marcus, who's as human as the day we met him. Either way, we need Season 2 to give us some answers in this regard. What is it about Kepler-22b that has caused humans to devolve this way, and does time affect these creatures differently? We'll have to see, but we're thinking that although devolved, these feral creatures may very well have survived by being able to see and feel in 4 rather than 3 dimensions, allowing them to control time in some other way. It's a shot in the dark, but at least it's something, right? Finally, we've come to Marcus, who started his journey as an atheist without a care in the world, only to transform into a religious zealot after hearing a selection of voices that we still know next to nothing about. In an interview between Guzikowski and Collider, the showrunner was asked about the future of Season 2 of the show, which led him to mention quite a bit about Marcus, showing just how much of a focus the season will be placing on him. In Guzikowski's own words, he was completely powerless, and he got to this planet and was suddenly hearing voices and everyone was worshipping him, and he lost his mind essentially. In the process, he's kind of been broken down into his most essential elements. So I think in Season 2, we're going to see a sort of rebirth, as it were. He's going to kind of redefine himself. We have no clue what Guzikowski might be hinting at here, but we can't wait to find out more in the coming months. But what do you want to see in Season 2 of Raised by Wolves? Let us know in the comment section down below. And that's it for this video, everyone. If you liked what you saw, please like and subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you never miss an update from us. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.